So Razer just dropped a new set of gaming desktop speakers. It's called the Nommo V2 Pro, which is the successor to the original Nommo Pro that was released back in 2018. This is a $450 speaker system, which is a lot of money. In fact, the original Nommo Pro was priced at $500. Wait, hold on a second. Why does Razer sell it for $600 right now? Huh. Well, I guess they definitely want you to think you're getting a revised product for a lot less. Even though that's good, I mean, it's technically a little bit cheaper, but I'm really curious to see why they jacked up the price. It's certainly a red flag. Anyways, back to the Nommo V2 Pro. Razer has implemented some key features that make it somewhat unique compared to what's already out there, like a wireless subwoofer for that clutter-free aesthetics, a wireless control pod to assist users with playback controls, more RGB bling, and some updated drivers. But with the growing interest in soundbar these days, why would anyone consider spending all that money for a 2.1 speaker system? That too from Razer. Well, let's talk about it. So the setup process is pretty straightforward. The instructions are laid out perfectly on the box. The accessory kit comes with a guide that's more detailed, a control pod, which is sort of the main hub for the speakers. These are powered by two AAA batteries, which are also included, thankfully. The power adapter for these speakers come with regional plugs. You also get a USB Type A to Type C cable to connect to the PC and a separate power cord for the wireless subwoofer. Now, if we look at the design of the V2 Pro, it's a slight departure from the original model. They've compiled it into a smaller package, which I guess is ideal for smaller setups. The subwoofer is more square-shaped than the cylindrical form that we saw with the original Nommo Pros. In fact, it's the exact same 5.5-inch down-firing driver that you get with the Leviathan V2 soundbar. And with it being wireless, you can simply plug this directly into a power outlet and it'll automatically connect to the speakers, and the solid green LED indicator means that the connection is successful. Now, the satellite speakers look very similar to the older model, except they've eliminated the Silk Dome 0.8-inch tweeter for a larger 3.2-inch full-range driver per speaker. They are housed inside this matte black plastic chassis, and they're about 7.5 inches tall. The base is pretty solid, and just like the original Nommo Pro, these are oriented at an angle for slightly better sound projection, but it would have been nice if Razer provided some sort of tilt adjustments.
The new Montec M-Key keyboards are all about the real pleasures of sight and sound for daily feel-good fingertip moments. We've got cool colorways, comfortable and great texture keycaps, latest Gatoron switches with proper lube, and a hot swap board with silicone dampening that sounds way above its class. Plus, enjoy the accent keycaps and a rotary knob for that Montec goodness. Check them out below.
Now, given that this is a Razer product, you have to expect some sort of RGB lighting, and they've integrated it tastefully. You get these rear projection lighting zones per speaker that face the wall to create a suitable ambience for your gaming setup, and they can be customized through Synapse. Although, I was surprised to only find 4 effects within Synapse, which include static, breathing, audio meter, which is just rainbow puke, and spectrum cycling. It would have been cool if Razer included the fire effect. It's one of my favorite profiles from Razer, and I know Dimitri uses it full-time on his Razer Blade laptop. Now, there is an ambient awareness mode that you can enable through Chroma Studio, which is built inside Synapse. This essentially syncs the RGB lighting to what's on your screen, and it reacts in real time, and you can set your desired regions to reflect each speaker. The problem is that it doesn't look as good when you're doing desktop things. It doesn't get as bright and vivid as the default lighting effects. Even gaming doesn't do that much justice. I was testing out Doom Eternal just to see if it would react to the gunshots, but in reality, it was dull. You really have to force yourself to watch full screen, vivid and bright content to experience this ambient mode. Even built-in profiles for games like Overwatch didn't fare that well. All I saw was spectrum cycling with no reaction to gunfiring, and when you get eliminated, you'd think that the lights would go red, but it actually doesn't. I wasn't able to experience that immersive factor that Razer advertised for the Nommo V2 Pro. I don't know if you guys remember, but Logitech dropped the G560 speakers back in 2018, and they nailed the implementation with RGB, especially with the ambient mode. Plus, it costs way less than the Nommo V2 Pro. Let's talk about controls. So Razer decided to go with a wireless pod, and they've simplified the design compared to the original pod. So first of all, these are battery powered and they connect automatically to the speakers. So holding down the dial for 3 seconds turns on the unit. You can actually see that as the RGB fades into green, indicating the power state. A single click mutes the volume, double click plays pause your music, and triple click skips to the next track. If you need to switch sources between PC and Bluetooth, you can just click the button right over here and it changes the LED lighting indicator to blue for Bluetooth. And then you can adjust the volume levels by rotating the dial clockwise or anti-clockwise. Plus, you can remap these controls through Synapse, like being able to adjust the DPI settings or brightness levels. But the problem is, those features won't be officially available until this control pod becomes a standalone accessory that you can buy directly from Razer for $50. Supposedly, that's going to happen sometime in July. You see, this looks like a derivative of the Microsoft Surface Dial, but remember that thing is more advanced compared to this pod, and I'm not sure what the app support is going to look like, so we'll just have to wait and see how it performs. What about I/O or connectivity? Well, funny enough, Razer actually mentions that it's one of their key pillars to these speakers, but unfortunately, it's depressing because you only get one USB-C port to connect to your PC, power in, and a proprietary port for the left speaker. They've eliminated the optical connector. There is no aux input, let alone a headphone jack to quickly plug in a pair of headphones. And just like I mentioned in my Leviathan V2 review, USB is okay if you're hooking this thing up to a laptop, but keep in mind you're taking up a USB port already. Not to mention, if something goes wrong with the source, you're limited to troubleshooting options other than just using Bluetooth to figure out if it's either an issue with the unit itself or the port. Now, I get that this is a plug and play, set it and forget it type of setup. And if you're planning to hook this up with your desktop PC, you're gonna be fine. It's also cross-platform compatible with PS5 and PS4, unfortunately not Xbox. But I just can't digest the $450 price tag that this thing carries, especially since there are multiple options out there for less than $300 that can get you tons more or a lot more inputs compared to what these speakers offer. As for Bluetooth connectivity, Razer is using the 5.3 standard, which is more energy efficient, and I had no issues pairing it to my smartphone. The control pod gestures work pretty well with my phone, and it supports SBC and AAC codecs. Unfortunately, no LDAC support. Also, you can't pair multiple devices at the same time, and oddly, Razer's own audio and Chroma RGB app are not supported with the Nommo V2 Pro. So if you need to make any adjustments with the EQ or even change the RGB lighting, well, you can't. And when I have this thing paired to my phone and listening to music, the RGB light show is absolutely horrible. It reacts to the music that you're listening to and it changes colors. It's a mess. I just did not like that. I just wish if there's a way to turn it off, but you don't have that option as well other than turning off the speaker. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video, sound quality. And well, they're really impressive, guys. Now, full disclaimer, I'm coming from a soundbar. I love the simple and convenient setup. Plus, the sound projection is more direct facing versus having two separate left and right channels. So to me, it took me a while to get used to, but regardless, the frequency response was balanced with excellent clarity and strong low-end performance. They resonated with a rich, deep thump that it vibrated the thin drywalls here in the studio. You get a full-bodied sound with excellent dynamic range, even at lower volumes. And speaking of output, these do get really loud. My comfort range was around 30%, but yeah, if you want to be that person blasting music to annoy your neighbors, these will do the trick. Although I wouldn't recommend it. I will say at lower volume levels, the bass does tend to overpower the trebles, which makes it hard to distinguish and pick up little details when you're listening to music. But if you're gaming, you're gonna have a ton of fun with the Nommo V2 Pro. The clarity with footsteps gives you a good sense of positional awareness. The moment you pull that trigger, the sub's gonna sound boomy and tight. But perhaps the most interesting feature that I was excited to try out was THX Spatial Audio. Now, when you enable this to Razer Synapse, it introduces a new dimension to sound reproduction. It's not to be confused with virtual surround sound, but rather it uses advanced algorithms to create a 3D audio environment that just expands your soundstage. And let me tell you, it's trippy and pretty incredible at times. Razer has built-in profiles for games to support spatial audio, so when you're gaming, it recreates spatial cues and positional audio, so it certainly helps identify the direction where your enemies are approaching. You can pick up subtle footsteps behind you. It's an incredible immersive audio experience. But it isn't perfect. If you're watching YouTube videos, the trebles sound distorted. Sometimes I noticed that they were clipping, especially with my videos, even though they aren't. They sound perfectly great on stereo mode. So there are certain types of content that sound perfectly fine. In fact, better in stereo mode compared to THX spatial audio mode. The other thing is that you have to place these speakers within a certain range in order for it to function. So Razer recommends anywhere between 60 to 80 centimeters between the left and right speakers. Anything more than that is just not going to work. So you might have to rearrange a few things to make it work. But once it's done, you're set. All right, so I have a bit of an update for you guys. So the wireless subwoofer is not working. I mean, there's no power. As you can see, there's the green LED connector, or the LED is not turning on. I unplugged the power source, plugged it in, tried different ports, power ports as well. But yeah, it's not connecting to the speakers. So all I have is just these two speakers working, which is unfortunate. I mean, I was just reconfiguring these speakers because I was filming, but yeah, this is not acceptable for $450. Finally, I want to quickly go over Razer Synapse. So if you look right over here, you can adjust the volume levels, also set the source button to a different output. If you hold it, you can also switch to Bluetooth right away over here. But to keep in mind that Synapse disconnects itself right away from the speakers. You can also play around with game profiles. Here's a toggle for THX spatial audio. There is a separate EQ tab where you can just go to town with, and the lighting tab is pretty straightforward. So, you know, you have all your effects and you can cycle through all that stuff, adjust the chroma studio settings with the ambient awareness mode. And then there's a power saving mode, which you can enable right over here. But keep in mind that when this is enabled, and when the speakers go to sleep, you have to manually turn them on every time when you wake up the PC using the control pod. And I found that to be really annoying, so I just ended up disabling it. And then there is Razer Synapse issues that I had to deal with. So a lot of the times, actually, when I'm trying to figure out or just adjust the lighting on the speakers, Synapse just goes completely unresponsive. So if I want to change from spectrum cycling to static, well, it just won't let me do it. Like, I can't even move the Razer Synapse window, which requires me to reset the PC. So that was really annoying. And sometimes, you know, Synapse doesn't even detect these speakers. I'll have to reset the PC again for it to work, or unplug the USB cable for it to recognize the Nommo V2 Pro. So Razer Synapse was just being Razer Synapse. That's the best way to put it. Okay, so here's the million-dollar question. Should you consider the Nommo V2 Pro? Well, for the price, I can't recommend it, guys. Now, there's nothing wrong with the sound quality. It's absolutely amazing. The THX spatial audio feature is dope, but I feel like the rest of the package doesn't equate to the $450 price tag. You don't get enough I/O. I mean, a headphone jack would have been thoughtful. You can't control the EQs via Bluetooth mode, which ironically can be done on their Leviathan V2 soundbar. The RGB lighting is cool, but the ambient awareness mode could use some work. It's just not as good as Logitech's offering. Razer does offer other SKUs of the Nommo, like the V2X for $150. That's only a 2.0 sound system with no RGB. The regular V2 is $300, but the subwoofer is wired and you don't get the wireless control pod. And I guess the Pro is meant for convenience. So if cable management is your utmost priority, and if you are shopping around for a 2.1 sound system, then this should be on your list, I guess. But remember, you don't have to spend this kind of money to get an amazing audio experience. There are tons of options out there that cost way less than the Nommo V2 Pro that sound just as good. Take the Klipsch Pro Media 2.1 speakers. Legendary set for $120, and I absolutely loved my time with it. The SteelSeries Arena 7 is fully loaded with tons of connectivity options, and it's well rated. The Logitech G560 is yet another amazing set. I just think that Razer made a mistake pricing the Nommo V2 Pro the way they are right now. So on that note, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're able to take away everything that you needed to know about Razer's brand new 2.1 gaming desktop speaker system. Honestly, let me know what you guys think about speaker systems in general. Would you rather go with something like 2.1 versus having just a soundbar with a sub? I'm curious to know about that in the comments. Yeah, I'd like to have like a productive conversation with you guys. So feel free to chime in the comments. I'm Ibra with Hardware Canucks. Thanks so much for watching. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Oh, and don't forget to spend responsibly.